Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, wherever in the world you happen to be. My name is Carmen Yetzi Mazera, and as you know, I serve as Executive Director of CAPDL, the Coalition for American Public Diplomacy and Leadership. I'm so excited to welcome you to another Capital Best Practices webinar, this time talking about how we can deliver trainee and internship placement programs that work both for hosts as well as for participants. We're joined by three wonderful guests, and I will introduce them in just a minute. But I do want to invite all of you as we go through this session, please, if you have questions, put them in the chat. We'll have a time for a bit of discussion among our participants and then a chance for you all to ask your questions. I know you represent so many different roles within the Bridge USA space. I'm sure we're going to have a chance for a great dialogue here today. I also want to remind you that we have some other wonderful sessions coming up, both online and for once in person. On September 30th, we're doing a session particularly aimed at your current participants and alumni, talking about how they can link their Bridge USA experience to being more competitive for MBA and public health and social service graduate programs. So, a way for them to really bridge the experience that they had into their future careers. And then on October 21st, we're hosting an in-person workshop in Miami, Florida, because life is hard and I have to go to Miami in the fall. And this is going to be a session both for those who are currently working on Bridge USA to have an exchange of ideas and best practices, but also to introduce the program to some new organizations. So we're doing two workshops that day, both for those who are new to Bridge USA as well as those who know it well. So more information about that comes out in our Friday emails, which you will get tomorrow. And then, as always, if you need me, you know how to find me. So I'm really excited to welcome you to this session, as well as to all of those upcoming events. But here we are at the beginning of our session today talking about TIPPs, and we have three wonderful panelists whom I will very briefly introduce. They've had great careers, and I'm only going to give you a taste. Luca Di Falco was born in Sicily and began his hospitality career at the age of 15, working in his brother's restaurant. And from there, he's taken that passion for hospitality and moved to many different parts of the world. He worked at some of the finest restaurants and hotels within Italy, both, as he says, from the heat of a summer in Sardinia all the way to the mountains of the Borghese of Italy. He moved from Italy to go to London and was working at top hotels in London, really taking that career and expanding it into the hotel space. And then from his time in London, he went back to Sicily and then moved to work at Disney World in Orlando, living what he called the American dream. From his time in Orlando, he then went on to California, working again at some hotels and restaurants, in La Jolla, California. And after 1 year, he moved to work at Princess Cruise Lines. So he's really had some experience with some top companies in Europe as well as in the United States. And it was while working with Princess Cruise Lines that he got called back to Orlando to work with the Beachy Group, and really was able to help them move along with their management and their training processes. And at the young age of 25, he was even brought in to be a corporate maitre d' for the Beachy Group, training all the future managers at other locations. So it was from that time working in Sicily, moving to London, moving to Orlando, moving back to Florida, that today he is a managing partner for the Beachy Group in Naples, Florida, where his vision really is to not only provide, as he says, the best customer service and the best Italian cuisine, but also to really make guests feel like they've just traveled to Italy when they come into his properties. So I think that sounds wonderful if I could do that from my living room. But so I'll have to come visit you down in Naples, Luca. Moises Perdomo just graduated in 2021, so he's still our young intrepid, hospitality star. And he is currently working as a sales manager at a well-recognized hotel in the Dominican Republic. But he's had two wonderful Bridge USA experiences. In 2019, he had an international internship at Bryce Canyon Park in Utah, where he was able to start to understand the importance of customer service and working in high volume tourist destinations. And then he enjoyed it so much, he decided to come back in February of 2023, where he began a program in Orlando, Florida at the JW Marriott in Bonnet Creek. And he says this program really helped him with all of its rotations through different departments. get a comprehensive understanding of what it is to work in hotel operations, as well as strengthening those skills he built during university in hospitality and leadership and high quality service delivery. And what I appreciate is he says that not only did he build all those technical skills, but it really helped him work on his flexibility and adaptability, cross-cultural communication and teamwork, all those key things that we know are useful in life, as well as in hospitality and service and so many other aspects of international business. Our final panelist is Albert Zulps, who was born and raised in Vancouver, but as a commissioned officer in the Royal Canadian Navy was able to learn and travel all over the world, including in the UK, Japan, Singapore, Canada, and his current home in Boston, Massachusetts, which I love but is not as nice as the DR in Florida. Sorry, Albert. Within his work now on the emerging technology team at Skanska USA, he leverages all of these different global experiences to implement construction technology. And he says that his travel and adventures and that global perspective that he talks about, as well as his general geekiness, have been particularly relevant as he works to work with different communities, such as the drone community, the laser scanning networks, and lots of other different parts of Skanska's work, as well as working with the interns from all over the world that he was able to welcome to Skanska. So as you can see, we have three well-traveled, globally minded speakers here today to talk to us about how we can build TIPPs that serve those global needs of their companies, as well as the growth of participants. So to jump right in, I want to start, Albert, I'm going to ask you first. By definition, TIPPs have to explain what the knowledge and skills and techniques are that an intern is going to learn or a trainee is going to learn during their program. But how do you, as a host organization, decide what those knowledge and skills and techniques are that you can impart to a participant during the time that they have? And how do you balance what Skanska needs with what the participant wants to learn?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty easy, but maybe a long-winded answer to that question. That is that it's always to us it's been a win-win situation. So generally, as a large company like Skanska, we have different functions like HR, marketing, business development. My group in emerging technology, we tend to get interns that have an engineering or architecture background. I'm an architect by training as well too, so I kind of empathize with what they might want to get out of their internship. But part of this is the interview process, seeing exactly like what they'd like to get, knowing that as a matchmaker myself, there's probably a place in the company that they would fit in really well, and it would be a symbiotic kind of relationship. So typically, in emerging technology where I am, if we look at somebody, we look at areas that we have a blind spot to. We don't have enough staff to do a lot of things, especially emerging technologies, really exploring new technologies. So to have an intern that's interested in exploring with us some of these new technologies, and for the first part of their internship, the learning plan might be something to do with doing some research and learning from us on what we do and the landscape in the background. And then the second part of the internship could be actually capitalizing on that knowledge and implementing a new technology. So for us, it's really easy to find, the passion of the people we're meeting online. We have an online meeting or an interview, and then determining, where a good fit might be. And then with a bit of back and forth, we can make a really beneficial marriage, of the intern to the company. So that makes sense at all, but that's kind of our way of looking at it.
Thank you. Look, how about
Yeah.
you on the hospitality side? Is it quite that symbiotic?
Well, in hospitality, it's something that actually, it's not easy to come to this country, unless you have a visa. So the J1 gives the opportunity for people with a passion that wants to bring back to their country some experience how to manage a restaurant. But I see, since I came here in this country, I see how different is the hospitality business in Europe compared to United States. It's completely another world. So for them to come here, it's a learning process, even if they already have experience. And it's amazing those programs because I was one of the J1. I don't know if you know, but I didn't mention in my resume, but I was the first one doing the J1 for Beach Group on myself. So I completed the training and everything myself for the first time. And when I have some candidate, for me it's like it comes back to my memory when I was dreaming to learn from this country so much about this business. Then of course I took other visa and things, and then I stay here. But giving the opportunity to other people from all over the world, mostly from my country, because that's usually with the Chamber of Commerce of New York, where I specialize to do J1 with the Italians. But giving this opportunity to people, it brings me the memory when I was dreaming this country. And what we do is three phases, starting from the office aspect, how to run a restaurants from the accounting side, then on the field, how to serve, and from the A to Z, the customer relation. And then the other one, it's also events outside the restaurant, between charity, wine tasting, or gala outside the restaurant concept. So mostly it's something that excites everybody when they come for 12 or 18 months.
Thank you. And Moises, as a past participant, how did you explain to your employers what it was that you wanted to learn? And do you have examples of the knowledge or skills or techniques that you picked up during your internships?
Oh yeah. So I remember when I come in right here for like make my interview first. I'm coming with it's like from Dominican Republic. It's not normally like do internship. It's like something new when I start to do. So, but I try like coming with my agency. It's in this time it's international. It's like I try to talking with her like with my employee directly like I wanna working with like something in the hotel with food and beverage because like I explain everything like why I wanna do. For example, I remember that I told to him like I have vocational service. I really like workaholic. It's like I have vocational service. It's like for this I wanna do this internship. Yeah, I remember I explained everything like I wanna do, and he told me like I was right here that if you like work, you learn right here. It's like I remember that when I've been right there, it's like the best experience that I haven't because after that I changed my life. So because with this as international experience, when come back to Dominican Republic like this, it's like can I work? Can I like choose my nose and everything right here? It's like a really dream.
So that communication and clear expression of what you hope and what the employer hopes is something that both you and Albert definitely talked about. Luca, you mentioned the rotations that interns do through different offices and departments. Are there best practices that you have in how you involve those other departments and explain to them or educate your colleagues about what this program is and what it isn't?
Yes. So I divided myself in three phases because running a restaurant is not just service to the customer. There is much more. There is marketing. There is office. So when I have a J1, they are completely a shadow of myself. So we become very close in the restaurant because wherever I do something in the face. I show them, and I make sure that they understand why I'm doing this practice with my experience, and it's fun to do. The 6 months period phase, and then do the assignment, and then complete the phase and start with the next phase. So even for them, it becomes exciting to learn completely three different way that managing restaurants require.
Thank you. Albert, how about you? How do you talk to your colleagues about the rotation process?
Yeah, it is definitely because we're a very large company. It's explaining it for the first time, like every time. You get lucky sometimes when somebody's had a placement before, but to understand, our obligation really to the interns and most of the programs that we're involved with also involves a cultural component as well too. So, me being a Canadian, I'm also dual citizen American and I've traveled around the world. I'm kind of aware of different cultures and different culture shock issues that might come up as well too. So, like making sure that the hosts that are actually Like it's not like Luca where he directly supervises each intern. I tend to have more of a distance, so I have to make sure those people understand, that we have to bring them into our culture as well too. So that might mean in Boston, for instance, a Red Sox or a Celtics game. Hope there's no, like anti-Celtics people here, but bringing them to a basketball game or a football game or something.
Nice.
Also, we have a lot of activities that, we can jujitsu a lot of things we already have internally. Like we have young professionals group. We have a woman in construction group, which everyone's welcome to. We do a lot of charity work, like, building houses or working in a soup kitchen. All these things are meaningful kind of cultural experiences that are peripheral to, the direct task maybe of working in emerging technology, but they add to that fulfillment and they create like lasting friendships. And I would say, I think there's a question you might be asking later about, how we judge our success. But one of them is the contact we keep with interns afterwards. And I think, Moises, it sounds like you have contact with some of your hosts from the past. And I think those networks, those connections made internationally are great. And I feel blessed that if I travel anywhere in the world, that I can go there. But getting back to your original question, I think it's a bit of education and patience involved on our part as people that want to bring these interns into the company to make sure everybody understands completely like what's involved.
And since you said it feels like the first time, every time you have to educate them, do you have tools that you've used, or is there a way that you've done this more efficiently over the years?
Well, mostly it's by example. So, for instance, in Seattle, we had an intern recently from, I believe, Estonia, and they hadn't had an intern there before, an international intern, but we have had them in like San Francisco. So, people that are HR that are common to both regions, let them know, it's happened in other regions, and give them a heads up and make sure that it's not just me trying, because often it sounds like I'm trying to sell the idea, but maybe by example, like showing, other areas in the company where it's happened. So I think, in some ways that's a way to speed up the process by, making sure that, we communicate clearly and give examples. So I think, the best practices we have are examples of previous interns and their successes and, where it was done as well too. Because every city has its own nuances and every internship is different, especially in a company like ours. We've had marketing interns. We've had people in IT, which is interesting. We're having one we're looking at right now that might be involved in green sustainability and construction. What a great opportunity to come to the US to learn about, how we do sustainable construction here as well too. So it really depends, and because everyone's a unique individual, I think we treat them with that uniqueness as well.
And it sounds like you've built a network of allies too in HR and in all of these other departments to transmit your messages for you.
Exactly, because it sounds too good to be true, but it is true. So you have to convince people that because everyone's a little leery about, like the opportunity that could happen, but it's never been anything but, a wonderful opportunity.
That's great. Moises, how about you? How was the rotational process for you? What kinds of things did you learn? And what do you wish the departments had known about you coming into their team?
Okay, so gonna be three phase. I was working in room dining. I was working in the Japanese restaurant and the breakfast restaurant as well in the hotel. So, but in different positions as well. I remember that I started to work like server assistant in every place, and after I do server. So I learned too much right there because it's like with this rotation, it's like you learn everything, everything directly in food and beverage because uh, you know everything whatever you wanna know, like how they can do like what. So and after that, I don't wish that like I wish after the rotation they ask like what is the department that you wanna work like or like you wish to work when you come back to Dominican Republic. I remember that I tell him like I wanna work in sales department. So when send me, they send me right there for this department like for 2 weeks. I learned like what everything after combat experience. And I get it right there. Like the rotation for me is amazing.
Thank you. And Moises, it sounds like the connection's a bit touch and go. So if we need to, we'll adjust that in a second, at least on my end. Um, so we talked a little bit about the rotation period, but I'm curious about the evaluation period, which is also expected of J1s. Luca, how have your
Yeah.
processes for changing or for evaluating interns and trainees changed over time? And why did you change how you evaluate them?
So the evaluation of each candidate.
Yes.
Hello? Yes. So what I used to do a questionnaire, honestly, at the end of each phase. That was it was okay, but then in the time I changed in a way that if the phase was 6 months, the last month I completely was their shadow. So I became, and they loved it because they became the general manager. So I was their shadow, and I wanted just to learn from them because I'm sure they're doing things. Following my guide, but in their personalized way. I want to learn too about the way that they were doing things, not just because they were usually younger than me, but also because coming from a different part of Italy or Europe, I wanted to see how they were handling things. So my evaluation was giving them the power of being for 1 month that position that I was showing to them. And they loved it because they got to do, for example, the meeting. They were running the meeting with the employees. They were running the payroll. So of course, with my supervision, if in case there was a mistake, I didn't want to, do a mistake or something. But they were running and they felt confident. So each phase, I let them do it. The most challenging was, I think, for them mostly when the last phase when they had to do an outside event or something. They were a little bit scared, but I made them feel comfortable that they could handle, organizing something outside, always with my supervision. So my evaluation was them being on the field, completely let them running as they were in charge.
I love that. The American expression, the English expression, the proof is in the pudding, literally in your case, as to
Yeah.
whether they can do
I,
the job. Albert, how
I
about
always
you?
say, I show you, now you show me, and it worked.
And a wonderful thing for them to be able to go home, as Moises said, and talk to future employers about what they've done and how they did or did not do the work the way needed to be
Yeah.
done. Albert, how about you, particularly with folks spread across so many different places? How do you manage the evaluation process and how has it changed over time?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know if it's changed or not, but there's a couple components to it. And one is on most of the programs that we have J1 interns, there's two evaluations, one mid time, like 6 months, and then one at the end. And that obviously is pretty far apart. But I think all along there's really continuing mentorship, and that's like a two-way evaluation. Like, are you on the right track? What's happening? I like Luca and your idea, like proof is in the pudding. I feel like I should be in the restaurant industry. My brother was a chef, so I feel like I have some street cred there. But basically, at the end, like the pride you get from doing something on your own, like taking the training wheels off, and then you're the one that does it, gives you confidence, understanding, especially how things are done in the US, because they are done differently in different countries. Ideally, bringing some of those different ways we work here back to their country, but also learning how they do things in their countries. Like Estonia, for instance, is a country that I think Skype was invented, where all this, webinar stuff comes from, so there's things that we can learn from our interns as well, too. And I think part of that evaluation process as well is getting their feedback at the end, like what can we do better for the next intern? So it's a two-way street, but by continually mentoring and I don't do that myself necessarily if they're not in our department, but the person that's directly responsible, getting communication going and keeping it going all the time. And that can be difficult. Maybe in the restaurant industry it's different, but we can work remotely from time to time. So when you have people working remotely or your boss might be in a different city, we had the IT person that we hosted in Boston, but they worked for a team in North Carolina. So giving that local guidance needed, for all those opportunities to be part of the networks like the Young Professionals Network and the Women's Network. as well as getting their national assignments done, like in Charlotte, and doing their web meetings. But because we're decentralized a bit and we can work remotely, it makes it something you got to keep on top of. And the best way of doing that is like mentorship and communication, I think, continuously. So the evaluations are constant.
That's great. I think Moises is navigating the technology issues. So I'm curious for both Luca and Albert while he sorts all that out. Um, is there anything that you've heard from an intern or learned from an intern or trainee that's changed what you do in your business? Luca, how about you? Any delicious new dishes that interns have brought you? No.
You mean something that they brought to the company?
Yeah, something you learned
Well,
from them. Yeah.
yeah, no, sorry, my headphone just fell. Well, what I learned from, well, in the restaurant business, I'm sure the other business too, but it's changing a lot, especially lately. It's not just the AI. It's a lot in the technology that it's changing how to run restaurants. For example, here we use OpenTable, that it's a software to make reservations. In Italy, there is a new software that they just developed last year, and it's similar but completely different. So they were teaching me a guy that he did the J1. They were teaching me this kind of things that actually our software here doesn't do it. And I love technology. I love to implement even in my business because he helps to get to know the customers, how to reach them for the marketing, for a lot of things. So yes, there was a lot of things that I learned from them. Some I have to say, of course, some dishes that they brought me, especially for the pizza industry. It's changing completely in Italy. It used to be just very simple Napolitan style. Now there are some gourmet new dishes that I know because I travel. I was in Sicily last 2 weeks ago for a month, so I go to restaurants in Italy to learn. But with them, we were talking always about how it's changing in Italy because I think Italy it's a big school for the at least for our cuisine. Over here, we do operate in a different way, but always with the feedback from our own country because that's where the real food, it comes from, to be honest. So they teach me a lot, and some of them they also have experience in the kitchen because in Italy everybody knows how to cook or everybody has an experience in the kitchen, not just at home with their grandmother or mom. But when you go to the restaurant, you need to learn from the kitchen too. So they, different technique, different things that I thought in United States we were ahead. But actually, I learned that Italy is always first, even in the input technology into the restaurant business, new equipments, new ovens. I mean, I bought my first electric pizza oven from Italy, and when it came here, I was the first one in Naples having a pizza oven electric that does the pizza exactly the same like the wood oven pizza. So that's what I love from my country, that they keep studying and evolving this business. Here, we're very busy delivering, but they have the time to think. So I learned so much from the J1.
I love that. Albert, how about you? And then Moises will ask you what you learned during your time.
Yeah, so quite a few, but I'm thinking of Christianis Silicas. He was an intern from Latvia. Latvia is where my father was born, so I have some affinity to Latvia, I guess. But basically, he was a fully sponsored Baltic American Freedom Foundation BAF intern, and so we had the luxury of having somebody that was sponsored, so we could go off the grid a bit and experiment and explore things. And what he ended up exploring was laser scanning. And laser scanning, for those that don't know, LiDAR is when you have a laser that you can use to scan existing conditions of a building, so you don't have to actually take measurements with a tape measure. It's very safe. You don't need ladders. You can share the scan at point cloud with anybody. So it's kind of revolutionized what we do in construction. You can do it for quality control to make sure things are installed correctly, check a model and then check where things are physically. So there's a lot of potential there. Well, on the weekends, we taught him how to scan and he helped us do some scanning, but then he actually would take the scanner in the office on the weekends and he would scan different materials, like looking for reflectivity and how it works. Because sometimes when you scan like shiny ductwork, it just disappears. Like the reflection means that you don't get a good point cloud. It's like a mirror. Trying to take a measurement through a mirror is very difficult. So he figured out different angles and different ways to do things, and he helped us with some standards that we still use. So having, that luxury to have somebody who's really smart, who's also passionate about, I think in his case, physics, like learning about light and reflectance and how the pulses of lasers work. He learned about all the infinite details. He's an engineer by training. He was able to really help us out. So we had the luxury, and I imagine in the restaurant industry, maybe you can turn someone loose to experiment with a different way of working or using like electric ovens and things too. So having interns in our case allowed us to be a bit more experimental and then learn from them. So that's just one example. I can name a dozen examples like that, but that's just one example.
I love it. And I love that both of you were able to sort of leap forward technologically thanks to the interns and trainees that you had. Moises, how about you? Was there something that you particularly learned that you were able to take back when you went home to the DR?
Oh yeah. Yeah, so like I told you, so when I knowledge everything right here in Orlando, so I've been to Dominican Republic, everything, like my experience, my like everything. You know what I mean? Like when I come into Dominican Republic, it's like I take like kind of like a week in like vacation, and after that I start to work in hospitality again in hotels. And now I start to work in food and beverage operation. That I learn everything in food and beverage operation in the internship. I bring right here in the hotel, and now I change the position to sales manager because it's like you need to when I learn everything right there, it's like just bring right here. It's like I learn a lot. Everything I know in hospitality and tourism, I learn right there in the internship.
That's great. And that's the exchange of benefits both on both sides that make Bridge USA so wonderful, I think, at least. All right, friends on the line, we are going to open the floor up to your questions in just a minute. So please feel free to put those in the chat as we go. I have one last question for our panelists and before we open the floor up to all of you. And that is, how has the TIPP process either met your expectations in creating the plans and following the plans and evaluating the plans? And where do you think it could be improved? And Luca, I'll start with you. How could this process grow and change to be better for you and for the participants?
Well, sorry, my microphone is on. Yes. So I only did with the Chamber of Commerce of New York. And to be honest, I have a very amazing relationship with Alice because she was, since I think 15 years, doing helping me with the process with the J1. So we became not friends, but we talk once in a while. I went to visit them in the office too because I was in New York for vacation, and what they did, it's incredible. The way that they offer me the opportunity to help a J1 candidate, and I don't think there is nothing that they should change. They change a little bit the process. I think it became more professional and more detailed. It used to be easier for us to fill it up the form. It became a little bit more detailed, but actually it's a good thing because we need to know more about the candidate. So I don't think there is nothing I could change. They help me always, and they always check on us, and they also got me into this meeting today. So they're very very good in doing this.
We'll tell our colleagues at the Italian Chamber you did a wonderful commercial for them as well. Albert, how about you?
Actually, I don't have a whole lot to add. I was going to say, like, what had changed, and really, it has been not an issue. Like, if there was a problem, we would point it out, but there really is no problem. I think we're doing what's needed to be done. It's a fairly light, actual bit of work that's needed to fill out a training plan, for instance, and make a good match. So I think that everything works, and the success has been proven. We've had, I think, over 30 interns over the years, mostly through CIE, Albany, 8ADF, and BAF interns, but without a hitch, and the process of getting them over here, and then mentoring them and then doing the reviews has been flawless and no complaints. And I've only done probably about a third or a quarter of those myself. The rest have been the actual direct mentors that have done that work, and no one that I know has complained either. It's been, I think, necessary. It keeps conversations going, and it's a good way to get the data that you need and also that we need, those checkpoints, to make sure we're successful and continue to be successful.
Thank you. Moises, from the participant side, are there ways the process could be improved?
Oh yeah. So the same like Luca, I don't have any complaints about the my agency directly. I do with Ace International directly, and they expect everything right here. Like everything that they told me with this, I feel so happy with that. It's like I don't have any complaint about that.
Excellent. All capital members, so glad to hear they're delivering for all of you. All right, we have one question already. So our colleagues at Pelican, what you can come off mute, please, and ask your question.
Hi, good morning. How are you? I'm Liz for Pelican. Well, my question is for Albert. So what happened when an intern does well on the first or two evaluation, but still struggles to integrate into the team or a daily task, maybe, even after receiving the feedback? So how do you comfort this situation?
Well, luckily, we haven't had this situation. So the interns that we get are, we can call them interns, but they're really scholarship recipients. They competed for the position and they're doing like very, very well. So we've never had an issue. I mean, if we did, I don't think it would take long to figure it out. Like it wouldn't be like 6 months or a year into it that we realize there's a problem. Because I say there's continuing mentorship happening. So I think part of it is understanding their capabilities. And if we're challenging them, because I think everybody doing these programs wants a challenge. They want to learn something and they want to be challenged. But it can be hard for us to judge how much we're challenging somebody. So if we are pushing them too hard, because of the different cultures, they might not want to complain. Some people, like I guess being Canadian American, we're more than happy to tell you our feelings, but other cultures maybe aren't so expressive. So you have to like tease it out. Like, is everything good? Like, you don't seem happy today. And sometimes it might come down to something simple at the beginning, like maybe housing, and there could be a personal situation happening because we're all still human. So, having said that, we haven't had to deal with that. But, if I did have, brought to my attention that somebody wasn't performing as expected, I think we'd want to, contact the one of the host organizations quickly, through CAPDL, like let them know like what's happening and give them feedback so that in their placement process or their sponsorship of J1s, they would know, what to watch out for. And it could be something maybe as simple as homesickness, or it could be, a language barrier. It could be a lot of different things. But having said that, I'm pointing out possibilities of what it could be. I think the way to address it is probably through a formal process, like make sure people know. And I know in the military, like my military background, I was an officer, a divisional officer, and we had kind of a policy, and I think a lot of companies have this, where the first time someone doesn't meet your expectations, you give them a verbal warning, and it's not really on record. The second time is a written warning, so it goes on your record, and maybe it gets brought up to, CAPDL or someone. And then the third time is, okay, you're out of there. Third strike, you're out. So there is an administrative kind of HR process that most companies typically follow. But I feel like I'm just a talking head now because I haven't experienced any of that myself. So that's the best I can do for an answer. Sorry about that.
Luca, have you had a case where someone did well in one rotation and then perhaps didn't excel in a secondary rotation?
Well, in 15 years that I do J1 and I did many J1, of course, nothing is easy, especially for young people coming to this country. I always say United States is not for everybody. In Italy, they have a different way to work, different hours. Over here, it's different. It rewards you a lot, but hours are very different. For example, in Italy, they still have a break for lunchtime. I mean, I used to go home 1 o'clock and come back to work at 4. I know it sounds crazy, but they still do it. In some places, they're changing. But over here, it's all one shift. So there was a situation where they were asking me, "You guys are not taking a break even a cigarette break. I mean, I don't smoke. I don't. I was like, why in Italy? Yeah, in Italy we have all these kind of break, these things. So the challenge was they're changing their habit, and then they understood why. Because here, for example, in my restaurants, even at 2, 3, or 4 o'clock, people they keep coming to have lunch. So the shift is constant busy. So we divided, breakfast, lunch, or lunch and dinner shift. So they understood that the hours of work they are different. So a little bit of a challenge, in hours. And of course, when they come here, the first things is how to even get to work. So I help them usually the first month for everything. I became their driver. I became their big brother. So challenge, they're always there. I always prepare them when I do an interview for J1 that here is not everything. Is not coming on vacation, is coming for a commitment. They will learn a lot. They will go back home with a lot of knowledge, but there are also sacrifices to do, and that means concentrate at work and be open-minded in the big change that they will see coming to this country.
Yeah, could I add to that too? Because
Please.
actually, looking back to another life, when I was working for an architect in both in Singapore and in Japan, I hadn't graduated yet. I was basically doing a work rotation, and they work 7 days a week often in Japan. And they looked at me, the gaijin, like the barbarian, the foreigner, as someone that only had to work 6 days a week. I had, maybe work Saturday, but I got Sunday to do sightseeing. But after a while, there was a lot of pressure, like, because the job I had, they really wanted to work 6 or 7 days a week. I was the only one not working on Saturdays or Sundays sometimes, and I just felt the pressure to come in to work. So you kind of mold to that. And I can see going to the US, there might be that kind of peer pressure. And likewise in Singapore, I lived there for 3 years working as an architect, and working Saturday was normal. And, we didn't come in on Sundays, but they let me, as the Angmo, the redskin person, be off every other Saturday. And I also felt guilty. And after a while, I started working those hours. I wasn't an intern then, I was a fully paid employee. But I think what happens is you tend to mold to the culture, and you don't want to, if you're part of a team, you don't want to let your team down. So that might be something else going on too, is there's cultural differences, and that might be part of the problem for performance sometimes, is some people just don't assimilate and empathize with that team. And sometimes the team is bigger than your own cultural like beliefs, I think.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's the communication and the recognition of that uncomfortableness or shift that's really one way to kind of address that. Not to say one is right and one is wrong, but to just acknowledge that it's different and it needs to be dealt with in that context.
Yeah, it's a real issue. Yeah, in the US, we're known to be workaholics, I think, so career first, and vacations get postponed indefinitely. So there's something to be said about like being sensitive to other cultures.
Absolutely. All right, we have time for one last question if anybody wants to throw it in the chats. Um, Otherwise, I will close out with one question for all three of you. And Moises, I'm going to start with you. Um, did you feel like the experience balanced what you already knew as a student, as someone who had some experience, and where you hoped to grow? And for Luca and Albert, my question for you is when you're hiring, how do you find that right in between where someone who knows some things but still has a chance to develop during the process, but isn't so new that they're completely beginning at the beginning? So Moises, how did you find that right mix?
I don't really good hear the question. Can you repeat, please?
How did you find the internship balancing what you already knew from study and experience with what you could grow and develop? You're on mute, sir. Oh, there you go.
Oh, give me 1 second. Let me check the internet because it's not.
All right. Luca, how about you? When you're hiring, how do you find that mix?
You're talking about hiring J1, right?
Yes.
So for me, the opportunity is for everybody. There is no differences, honestly. And of course, there is some requirement that the Chamber of Commerce always require. I think it's 5 years of experience. Don't remember now. I think 3 years or 3 years of experience or 5 years of diploma. So yeah, of course, you need to have some basic requirement. But for me, if they accept it, then I do the interview and I'll give the opportunity 99% to everybody. Because also, you have to see my business on field things, because doing interview by FaceTime or Zoom, yes, okay, you need to ask those typical questions, but I like to see the body language with the customers, with the employees. So I'll give the opportunity. Of course, could be a way that they get terminated, that they don't finish the program. It never happened to me. It only happens to one guy, but he was his own reason. He was missing his kids too much. And I understood, and I'm still a friend with him. He's in Spain now. He sometimes write me, "Oh, I wish I could have completed the program," but family comes first. So if they're ready to leave their parents or their wife or the kids for a 1 year program, or even 6 months for one phase, then I'll give the opportunity. I'll give the chance.
Great. Albert, how about you, particularly on a technical side?
Yeah, I think there's two things to kind of look for. I think passion the person has and the spark that they have. Like there's kind of a glint in the eye when you're doing the interview. I like Luca how he said he looked for body language. I'm not good at those cues, but you can tell people that are passionate about something. And in the construction industry, we've been behind for so long. Like the farm industry, I think is the only one maybe behind us, but like automotive and aircraft industry, everything else, they're really far ahead with automation. And now with artificial intelligence and all these new things coming in to affect us, and they're really making changes on our construction sites. We need people that are able to think quickly, adapt, and it doesn't matter how much experience you have because maybe it's irrelevant. You might have a lot of experience doing things one way, but we're going to change how we do that. So I think just looking for a good fit in the company, and I'm lucky that we have a lot of different avenues. So if somebody sends a resume to me as someone that is interested in like green technology, like I said, there's a place for them. If they're interested in laser scanning or construction technology in general, or if they're interested in marketing, business development, there's a place for them to go. But I think the commonality within them all is that they're all eager to learn and passionate, and they do have their background. They're all educated. They have, degrees or master's degrees in something relevant, and it gives them a really good springboard to start with. So I think passion and the spark in their eye is what I look for.
That's great. Well, thank you
Yeah,
so much. Oh, Moises, are we back? Yes.
yeah. You hear me good?
Yes.
Okay. So now I hear with the guys, it's about like the balance of the knowledge from here. So you know what? Thanks for that. I have a job right here in Dominican Republic because in the hotel that I work right now, I'm the manager the youngest right here. It's like a thanks for that, thanks for the internship. It's like I learn everything I know. For this, it's like I'm working like I love. I have passion for my job. It's more for that because I really start to love the hospitality and tourism and hotels. It's in United States with the internship. It's like when I come back to Dominican Republic, it's like when I wanna work right here. So everybody know, like Lucas say, the hotels in United States, in Dominican Republic or in Italy is different. It's like it's like more in United States, like more faster, like so moving, go to work, do something, do something, do something. Always need to do something. It's like I always have something to do. It's like in Dominican Republic when I come back, it's like everything is done, always has something to do. It's like if all this is like thanks for that. It's like I really love the hotel and hospitality. Is the I told you is the internship like changed my life. I changed my mind and changed everything after that.
Beautiful.
That's wonderful. And knowing how many things you all have to do, I want to say thank you for taking some time with us today. Thank you to our audience. I look forward to seeing you all at a future Capital webinar. If you have a chance, please give us your very quick feedback on today's session with this brief poll. And while you do that, I want to repeat those very quick commercials that I had done earlier. Please invite your alumni and participants who would benefit to join us on September 30th for our session linking Bridge USA and competitiveness for graduate school. We have 3 great experts on graduate school admissions for MBA and public health and social science programs. Then if you are in Florida or have contacts in Florida, please invite them to join us on October 21st for a wonderful set of workshops we're doing, both introducing Bridge USA as well as having some great dialogue around with established businesses around Bridge USA. The State Department will be with us in Miami, so it's a really good chance to have some good conversation. I'll be in Lisbon next week for those of you who are attending WISTIC. If you're in DC, come by. Lots of great chances for us to connect. And I can't wait to see you at the next Capital webinar. Thank you all so much. Thank you to our speakers. It's been a great session, and I hope
Thank
you
you.
all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.